that operating theatre were prefabricated buildings. Much of what you find in post-war, you have a lot of prefabricated buildings. Especially if you went to the Colchester Sixth Form, you'll see that they had them down the bottom of the North Hill as well. Over there, that lovely grey building there is the old nurses' residence. That's where they would have lived on site and they'd have come and worked in the hospital itself. And obviously, we've got the main building there as well. Once this was put up for sale and we learned we were going to build on it, the buildings were knocked down and then we had a lot of material between the foundations. So we got to this area because this is the archaeological horizon. We'd have taken that material from between the foundations and come down to what we call the archaeological horizon. Our patches of orange gravels and sands. That is the natural. That's already been there, and the archaeology itself is dug in there, in amongst that. So all of the dark patches you can see across there is archaeological activity. And as Adam, my colleague, is.
Is that the same at Mersey, by the way? You know, when there's the cliffs, is that the same with the colour?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, you get natural occurs in different ways. It's either sands and gravels. You can get a lot of clay, especially out of London. You get that London clay, that lovely blue stuff. So it isn't always sand and gravel, but yeah, natural comes in different forms. It is typically in this area is luckily for us because it's nice, easy digging. It's sand and gravel, so that's quite a nice positive part. My colleague at the front, Adam, would have told you about the Roman road that comes across this way. That is more or less in line with Lexton Road, hence we have Lexton Road there. And off that we have ditches and we have graves. And out back here we have plenty of graves to talk to you about, which we have images on the side of that fence for you to have a look at. I've marked 3 different graves for you with these cones. If you cast your eye to the left here, the black and white cone, there was an entire horse buried in a grave.
Wow.
This is very unusual for us to find. You don't typically find a horse buried in its entirety, fully articulated, we call it, without being chopped up on its own. There was nothing else in the grave. It was on its back with its hooves in the air.
My friend said this, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I never thought you'd mention that. And he said that everyone was going, why was it buried upside down? I said, well, how would you lower a horse into a hole?
Well, I mean, it's a lot easier, sadly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're buried on our backs as well, aren't we? So typically this is a sort of practice. I mean, it's interesting that it's buried amongst humans as well. You know, it was found not in a separate cemetery for animals, it was found in a cemetery for humans. So this was a very highly respected animal. You can imagine your own pet or your own horse or whatever, if that passes away, you're going to be pretty devastated because you've cared and loved that animal for a very, very long time. It's no different to this animal we have here. So this was carefully placed in the ground and given a lot of rights and respect. And so that, from that, is very interesting part of this story. The red cone at the top there was a wood and lead-lined coffin. Typically you have lead coffins and you have wooden coffins. This was a myriad of the two. We had a lead frame with wood panels on all the sides of it. So this was a halfway house between, I've got a little bit of money, I can afford a bit of lead for my coffin, I haven't got quite enough to finish it off, so I've put a bit of wood on the sides just to make sure it's all fine. So that was up there. That's very interesting. Again, like the horse burial, we've never seen this type of stuff before. These are unique burials. We'd never seen these sort of things before. Even Philip Crummy, who is our director, who's been doing this for 50 years in this town, he hasn't seen burials like this before, so we know that we're onto something quite special here. The white cone there is to denote a burial of a female. The board there, I think it potentially says male, but actually we think it could be a female. And she was buried with a series of building materials we call septaria. This is a mudstone which they use, and you can see bits of it that are in the Roman walls and it is in other buildings in Colchester as well. This was laying on top of her directly, no material between. She was laid right underneath there. We think this is because it was a very shallow site, as you can see. It's not very deep, but also you've got to find where your individuals are buried. If you're burying an individual from your family, you want to be able to find them and amongst the groups of people that are there. So we think that this is a good marking system to find where their relatives are. David over there is digging a burial right now. David, show us your big pot. Please, mate. He's the only one out here. I might call upon him to help me out a little bit. Show us your big pot, mate. There it is. Lovely big pot. So that's come out of one of the graves, and that is not uncommon in this site. We have plenty of votive offerings. We have plenty of things that have been put in these graves as a means of taking them into the afterlife. They could be their favourite pots, their favourite jugs, their favourite bowls, their favourite cups. And we've found coins in these burials. We've had coins in mouths. We've had burials that have been face down, which is very unusual as well. We've had a great deal of different burials, lots of nice little different things. Really interesting caveats to this whole narrative we've got for the cemetery site. Got a double burial over there by that black bag, there, that little rucksack. There's a double burial there, a male and a female. Could be a couple, it could be a brother and sister, we're not quite sure yet, but definitely a female and a male burial. Really interesting as well. We've got another burial just there, where the other bag is. That is a very deep burial, that's about 1.5 metres deep into the ground. They've dug straight into that gravel and sand, and they've really made sure that these are very defined burial. And right next to me here we have these ditches. And off the Roman road we have these ditches that are perpendicular to it. These are to denote the cemetery and beyond. So possible field boundaries for people's land, for people's farming activities that go on away from this site. But predominantly this has been a burial site. And near the Roman road we also have potential for a temple or offerings for certain gods as well. In the middle between David and I there is a great swathe of dark material that you can see there, which puts some very narrow slots into. That was a quarry pit for extraction for the gravels and sand that you can see on the edge there. This sort of light stuff, this orange and yellow gravel and sand, that was extracted from the ground to make mortar and to make for building materials to build Colchester, to build our, to build the walls, to build the buildings, and it's a highly prized commodity. It's taken a lot of effort to get out of the ground, but you've got to utilise what is on your doorstep. If it's clay, you're extracting it, you're using it to make pottery, to make bricks, to make tiles as well. So we've got a really good narrative for this site, and we've got a lot going on. It's very busy. We've been here for 2.5 years. This is the 4th of 5 areas. We're very honoured to have been here for so long and been digging in this sort of weather. And yeah, we're very, very pleased indeed. Essex Homes have been very accommodating. They've made it very good for us, a good situation. We were able to do open days for you guys, and we're so pleased that we were able to come out and have a look and share this experience with us. So thank you very much for coming, especially in this terrible weather.
Is this the first open day you've had since back at the beginning of 2020?
I think we've had another one, and that means I've one at the front, but I think that was a bit more small scale. If you've got any more questions, I'm willing to answer. Yeah. Good question. Horses in general back then were quite small. It's only until the Victorian period where we got and we started to make things much, much bigger. We started to breed things for different purposes. Back then you had animals to draw, to plough fields. They were more oxen and cows and things. They wouldn't have used horse-drawn things to plough fields. The heavy set animals were cows and horses. So horses were typically drawing smaller carts and things, but they were quite small. You'd only breed horses with the chariots that were slightly bigger to ride the chariots.
What have you thought about today?
Yeah, it's cool.
It's really interesting, isn't it?
Well, it's more interesting around the back.
A little bit later
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the Norman period, you have horses that are quite small. As you can see on the tapestry, the Normans had their legs almost touching the ground when they were riding their horses. They would have steered the horses with their legs. It's not too dissimilar in the Roman period. They were small animals, but that animal was quite small, probably used just as a small pack animal. Beg pardon? It was probably only about that high. Its head's probably up to here, I imagine. It was not a very big animal, so it was probably not necessarily a pet, but it definitely wasn't used for going into war with.
Chariot winner. Been a winner.
Possibly a bit too small for that, but we did find. Sorry.
Lots of questions being asked.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You've got.
What was his name again?
You've got
Dave?
Lots of trade, lots of economy.
Show
You've
us your
had
pot.
people coming in and out of the town.
Yeah.
You have satellite settlements all around Colchester. If you looked at a map of Colchester and you did a 30-40 mile radius, you've got these satellite villages and towns that have supplied things to the Roman town of Colchester. And they would have obviously brought all these in through animals like that. That sort of animal would have been more of a small cart drawing animal. So yeah, it's probably not a battle horse, but it was love. You're spending every single day with that thing, that little guy. So you can imagine the sort of sentiment people would have had towards their animals back then. There's a lot of connection. Any more questions?
Yeah, just like, how much longer from Colchester to
So
or
we've
is
got
it not time frame?
How much longer have we got?
It's sort of time frames. We've got one more area over there on the other side of that large spoil heap, and that is going to be a smaller area, but it's going to be more burials. So it is going to be another 6 months to a year, I think. We've been here for 2.5 years. We've got a little bit longer to go. We've been here for so long. We've been here pre-pandemic, throughout the pandemic. It's been a long process. We've been really honoured to be here, and we've got a lot of care and attention into this, and it's really. We've got a lot of local people working for us, and we're really keen to represent Roman Colchester's history.
Is the area at the front all clear to be built on now then, since
Yeah,
that's
I believe so.
yeah.
So we've dug all the areas out the front. As you can see, there's several photographs over there. There's a plan drawing, a multicoloured one, which shows the different areas we've got in conjunction to the buildings that we have
okay,
here.
cool.
So you'll be able to see the different areas we've dug each time, and see how far we've come. It's a very, very multi-layered site. We're so close to the town, it's going to be very busy here. So it's very, very interesting indeed.
You said there's another area beyond the spoil heap which you have yet to excavate. Will there be an open day for that?
I'm not sure. Possibly. There'll be a lot more of our finds and our work on display potentially in the Roman Circus Centre.
Not quite the same as seeing the actual site though, is it?
No, I mean it'll be a lot smaller. There'll be a lot less to see. The reason why we've got this here is because it's such a great swathed site. We can actually show you in a bit more detail what is going on and the expanse of the graves and everything else. So, there's a lot more to see here. Over there, there'll be plenty of things to look at and dig.
There's going to be lots of burials over there.
There'll probably be more burials. I mean, everything south of the road is burials.
Right. Oh, right.
Yeah, and we're south of the road. We're coming off the road. They're all buried perpendicular off the road. In here, I imagine there probably was. I mean, when these buildings were built, I mean, I'm looking at them now, and I'm thinking, they're probably 150 years old or so.
Yeah.
There wouldn't have been any archaeological condition, I'm afraid. So if there was any burials, they're probably long gone, I'm afraid. But the road itself, there'll probably be burials preserved underneath the road. But we can't get close to them. There's probably burials under here, but they're not going to build on this part as well.
So where do these foundations get back to? They're found stuff, do you reckon?
They probably would.
I think that's it for now. I think that's finished. Let's go and have a look at the boards.
I want to find out what happens to all stuff.
They probably found plenty of
Oh,
things.
okay, you can ask.
To be fair,
Are they going to go
in
to
the
the
medieval
castle?
period, even the medieval period, they were robbing the buildings from the Roman period, building other buildings out of that material. So the Abbey Gate has got bits of masonry from the circus. St Botolph's, the original St Botolph's church, has got tons of Roman bricks. It's got beautiful archways built of Roman brick. The Colchester Castle, which is obviously Norman, that's got plenty of Roman brick in there as well. So they're very resourceful. Whatever they found, they made use of. So as much as it's a bit sad to think that they robbed a lot of the Roman stuff, but they made other significant things with it.
It's recycling. It's good.
Yeah.
After after everything's dug out and it's all been catalogued, and will it stay here in Colchester?
So we have the Colchester and Ipswich Museum Archive,
Yep.
which there's a part of that based in Several's estate. We typically will keep a lot of that there. Anything that's dug in the Colchester and Ipswich boroughs, they are kept in this art museum archive. We're hopefully, because it's Essex Homes that have funded this project, because they're going to build on this, they own all of the material that's come from it.
Okay.
We will take the material and study it and analyse it and make reports about it, or the pottery, or the human remains, or the animal remains, and we'll collate that and make it into a report. When that's all finished, that will be stored in the museum archive. Potentially will be put on display. I mean, we have plenty of wonderful things in that lovely little tent over there. We have coins, we have whole pots, we've got mortuaria, we've got things from Belgium, from Germany that have been imported to this area over time. So, as for the human remains, we'll analyse that, send it off for us topic analysis, and that will be, a lot of them will be repatriated to the Colchester cemetery where they're reburied.
Oh, okay, cool.
So they'll stay quite local.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
He's laying on his back.
Yeah. This is the horse burial.
Back legs. And
Yeah.
that's crazy. You know,
Yeah.
Exciting. And yeah, 1%.
It's so cool. And then this is part of a mortaria, so where they would have crushed up their corn and things and then poured it out. And so
I mean, you know all this. Yeah, it's a legal requirement. So Maggie's actually brought that in. There's one of her laws that any kind of dig goes low, we have to at least do WSI, like a research.
But I was actually talking to a lady who come by to say that she was part of a project.
Yeah, that's cool. Right, I think that'll be it.
We have it